So, picture two apartments in the exact same building.
Yeah.
Like, they share the exact same floor plan, they sit in the exact same urban neighborhood, and they cost the exact same amount in monthly rent.
Right. A total apples to apples baseline.
Exactly. So, walk with me into apartment A. The person living here pulls in a very respectable $95,000 a year.
Which is a solid income.
Right. But you step through the front door and immediately your eyes are just drawn to this massive 75-inch OLED television that's bolted to the living room wall.
Yeah, the classic centerpiece.
Yeah. And dominating the rest of the floor space is this like $4,000 imported leather sectional. And then you navigate into the kitchen and you literally have to turn your shoulders sideways just to get past the island.
Because of the clutter.
Because the counters are heavily barricaded with appliances. I mean, espresso machines, air fryers, standing mixers. And if you look closely at the boxes pushed to the back, some of them still have the factory tape completely intact.
Right. It is a profoundly common ecosystem. I mean, you're looking at the physical manifestation of a very specific financial philosophy there.
And it extends to the rest of the house, you know? You open the bedroom closets and the friction is just palpable. Clothes are crammed in shoulder to shoulder so tightly you have to yank a hanger just to get it loose.
And let me guess, a lot of them still have tags.
Yes. A good 30% of those garments still have the cardboard store tags dangling from the sleeves.
Wow.
Then you reach the spare bedroom, except it isn't a bedroom at all. The bed has been dismantled and pushed against the wall to make room for these towering stacks of plastic storage bins, old hobby equipment, and cardboard boxes that honestly haven't been opened since the last time this person moved.
So it's a storage unit that they happen to sleep next to.
Pretty much. But here is the most vital, invisible detail about apartment A. The person living there checks their mobile banking app with a constant heavy knot in their stomach. Because despite pulling in 95 grand a year, they're operating on a razor's edge. I mean, they are exactly 2 missed paychecks or like 1 moderate medical emergency away from a total cascading financial crisis.
Which really sets up the starkest possible contrast when we walk next door.
Exactly. So let's walk into apartment B. The individual living here earns $52,000 a year.
So just over half of what the first person makes.
Right, a fraction of the income. But the moment you step over the threshold, your biometric response is totally different, like your shoulders drop.
You can breathe.
Yes. The very first thing you notice is the negative space. The room feels breathable. There's a modest, comfortable couch. The television is appropriately sized for the viewing distance, not some movie theater screen.
Makes sense.
You walk into the kitchen, and it isn't barren, it isn't some sterile laboratory, but the counters only house the exact culinary tools that see daily action.
No unopened air fryers.
None. The closets hold a curated rotation of clothes that actually match the current season and the person's actual lifestyle. The spare bedroom. It contains a bed, a lamp, and a clear floor.
An actual bedroom.
An actual bedroom. But again, the defining characteristic is invisible. This person, earning $52,000, looks at their finances with absolute, unshakable calm.
Because they have a buffer.
A massive buffer. They have 18 months of core living expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account, and they automatically siphon 20% of every single paycheck into investments before they even see it.
That's incredible. I mean, they live in the exact same neighborhood, subject to the exact same macroeconomic conditions.
Right.
Yet the person earning almost half as much possesses nearly 10 times the actual financial security and psychological peace.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because on the surface, looking at pure math, this makes absolutely no sense to most people. We're so conditioned to believe that income equals wealth.
Right, that your salary is your net worth.
Exactly. But the source material we are exploring today completely shatters that illusion. So for everyone joining us, this deep dive isn't a conversation about how to negotiate a higher salary or hustle your way to a bigger paycheck.
No, not at all.
It's a deep structural exploration of the hidden and frankly completely misunderstood relationship between the physical stuff we choose to own and the actual wealth we are able to keep.
And I think we need to establish a baseline of empathy right out of the gate here.
That's a good point.
Because the high earner, the person suffocating in apartment A, is not inherently, bad with money. in the traditional reckless sense.
Right, they aren't out there making wild bets.
Exactly. When we audit their life, we don't find secret gambling debts in Las Vegas. We don't find wildly destructive addictions. They haven't made some colossal headline-worthy financial blunder.
So what's actually going on with them?
Well, instead, they are the victim of a systemic, highly normalized trap. They've engaged in a gradual, totally socially acceptable accumulation of a lifestyle that now requires every single dollar of their substantial income just to maintain the status quo.
Like a treadmill.
Right, they're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. And our mission today is to take a crowbar to our most basic assumptions about ownership. Because knowledge, especially financial knowledge, is entirely useless as an abstract concept. It only gains value when we understand the underlying mechanics and apply them to the literal walls we live within.
Yeah, we just saw how that $95,000 earner is basically drowning in shallow water despite their high income. So let's isolate the specific, invisible financial weight that's dragging them under.
The hidden math.
Exactly. The source text introduces a framework that completely rewired my brain on this topic. It's the concept of the second cost.
The second cost. I love this concept.
It's brilliant. It argues that absolutely everything you bring into your life costs you money twice. Like, the purchase price, the number printed on the receipt when you swipe your card, is nothing more than the entry fee.
Right.
It's just the down payment on a long-term contract.
And that entry fee illusion is incredibly dangerous because our brains are naturally wired to view transactions as finite events.
Yeah, you buy it, you own it, boom, done.
Exactly. You hand over the money, you receive the object, the transaction is closed. But if we pull back and look at the actual physics of ownership, that initial swipe of the card is merely the catalyst.
The starting gun.
Right. The second cost, which is the ongoing compound taxation of your resources, is what silently bankrupts households.
Yeah.
And the authors break this second cost down into highly quantifiable categories, starting with the most literal one, which is physical storage.
Space.
We are profoundly blind to the fact that the empty air inside our homes has a measurable market value.
The math they provide on this is staggering. Let's look at residential real estate. In most moderate to high cost of living, urban and suburban areas right now, residential space costs roughly $50 per square foot on an annualized basis.
Okay, so keep that number at $50.
Right. So let's take a ubiquitous piece of American household clutter. The heavy-duty folding treadmill.
Everyone has one of those.
Everyone. You buy one for, say, $800. But a treadmill doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It takes up about 20 square feet of your floor plan once you calculate the actual footprint plus the necessary clearance space around it so you don't, hit the wall while you're running.
Which means we can apply basic multiplication to reveal the hidden truth here. 20 square feet multiplied by conservative $30 per square foot equals $600.
Wow.
If you live in a pricier market, it's $1,000. So the owner is paying between $600 and $1,000 every single year in what economists call implicit rent, simply to warehouse that single piece of equipment.
$1,000 a year for an $800 item.
Every year.
To store a machine that, let's be brutally honest about human behavior here, is serving as a very bulky, very expensive drying rack for damp laundry, like 360 days out of the year.
Exactly.
Over a 5-year period, you haven't spent $800 on a treadmill. You have spent $5,800 to maintain a shrine to your past intention of running.
That's exactly it. You're allocating prime, expensive real estate to dead capital. And physical footprint is just the first pillar of the second cost. You also had to immediately calculate the ongoing maintenance, repair, and operational costs.
Which people never do.
Never. The standard industry rule of thumb, and this applies across various categories from vehicles to appliances to homes themselves, is that annual maintenance costs consume roughly 10% of an item's total initial value.
The boat scenario in the text is the ultimate cautionary tale for this. Let's say you drop $30,000 on a modest recreational boat.
Right. A $30,000 boat that sits on a trailer in your driveway or behind your garage.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting. And even if life gets busy, even if it rains every weekend of the summer, and you literally never hitch that boat up and put it in the water, the financial bleeding never stops.
Right, because of the maintenance.
It requires seasonal winterization to prevent engine cracking. It requires specialized cleaning supplies so the hull doesn't degrade.
Mm.
You have to maintain state registration, which is a recurring tax.
Insurance.
You must carry liability and damage insurance. You have the inevitable deterioration of rubber hoses and marine batteries that die from sitting idle. That is $3,000 a year, reliably, relentlessly draining from your checking account simply for the privilege of calling yourself a boat owner.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But the financial hemorrhage still isn't the whole picture. There is a massive, deeply insidious psychological toll that the text focuses on.
Oh, absolutely. The mental energy.
Yes. The second cost heavily features the draining of your mental bandwidth. Every single physical item you own occupies a tiny, permanent slice of your subconscious attention.
It's like having too many tabs open in your brain.
Exactly. You have to dust it, you have to organize it, you have to dig up the warranty when it makes a weird noise, you have to secure it when you go on vacation, and eventually you have to spend an entire Saturday figuring out how to ethically dispose of it.
And the clinical research cited here is what makes this undeniable. Environmental psychologists have actually mapped this out.
What did they find?
Well, when you're sitting in a room filled with visual clutter, even if you think you're ignoring it, even if you're just watching TV, your visual cortex is working overtime. It's constantly scanning and processing those shapes, colors, and textures.
So your brain isn't really resting.
Not at all.
Mm.
Studies show that existing in highly cluttered environments measurably spikes baseline cortisol levels, which is the body's primary stress hormone. It also degrades the prefrontal cortex's ability to maintain deep focus.
So the stuff surrounding the person in apartment A is literally physiologically stressing them out in ways they can't consciously perceive.
Exactly.
They're sitting on their $4,000 couch after a long day at work, wondering why they feel so chronically on edge, so fatigued, and it is largely because their brain is trapped in a room shouting with visual noise. Their possessions are actively hostile to their central nervous system.
And that biological cost bridges perfectly into the final and really the most devastating mathematical reality of the second cost, which is opportunity cost.
Oh, this part. Yes.
This is the bedrock principle of all wealth accumulation. Every single dollar you lock up in a depreciating physical possession is a dollar that you have permanently robbed from your own future.
This specific calculation blew my mind, and it's the exact moment I realized how dangerous accumulation is. Let's look at the home gym.
Okay, let's run the numbers.
You get a bonus at work, and you drop $15,000 to convert your garage into a state-of-the-art, mirrored, rubber-floored workout sanctuary.
Sounds great on paper.
Right. But the true cost of that decision is not $15,000. The true cost is the massive wealth that capital could have generated if deployed effectively.
Right, if it was invested.
If you take that same $15,000, place it into a broad market S&P 500 index fund, and let it compound at an average historical return of roughly 7% after inflation.
Which is a very standard assumption.
In 15 years, that money grows to nearly $42,000.
So when we audit that decision a decade and a half later, what did the gym actually cost?
It's so much more than 15 grand.
It cost the initial $15,000 plus the implicit rent of the garage space, plus the maintenance of the equipment, plus the $27,000 of completely forfeited investment gains.
Wow.
You didn't just buy a home gym. You bought a home gym by sacrificing a massive chunk of your own future financial independence.
Buying a major physical object is like hiring a terrible, completely non-working employee for your life.
Ah, I love that analogy.
Seriously. You don't just pay their hiring bonus, the purchase price at the register. You are actively committing to paying them an annual salary and square footage, a healthcare plan and maintenance, and sacrificing your own mental bandwidth just to keep them lingering around your house doing absolutely nothing.
That is an exceptionally precise analogy. You're voluntarily taking on permanent compounding overhead for a wildly temporary thrill.
Right.
And when you view possessions through this lens, the entire philosophy of minimalism shifts. The mainstream perception is that minimalists are ascetics who deprive themselves because they hate luxury.
That they just want to suffer.
Right, but that is totally incorrect. Minimalists are simply the only people in the room accurately doing the math on the second cost. They calculate the true, decade-long burden of an object and rationally decide that the juice is almost never worth the squeeze.
So if we accept this reality that every item is a potential non-working employee trying to get on our payroll, it begs a massive operational question. How do we filter the applicants? How do we evaluate what is actually worth bringing into our homes in the first place? because obviously we still need to live. We still need clothes, tools, and beds. This brings us to the operational guidelines the source text provides for determining true return on investment.
Right, and the first operational filter is to aggressively calculate the cost per use prior to any transaction.
Cost per use.
This is the mathematical antidote to the entry fee illusion. It forces your brain to stretch the value of the item across time rather than judging it by the immediate sticker shock.
The equation is beautifully simple, but the results are completely unintuitive. You take the total cost of the item, let's include tax and shipping, and you divide it by the brutally realistic, honest number of times you will actually utilize it over its lifespan.
And you have to be honest.
You do. The text sets up a brilliant showdown between two winter jackets. Scenario A. You buy a trendy, fast fashion jacket for $200. It looks great on Instagram today, but it's stitched poorly, it's not actually that warm, and the style is a passing fad.
Right, it's out of style next season.
Exactly. Because it's mildly uncomfortable and quickly looks dated, you only actually wear it 2 times before relegating it to the back of the closet.
So mathematically, that jacket cost you $100 per wear. It is an astronomical luxury disguised as a bargain.
Exactly. Now, scenario B. You buy an ultra-premium heritage brand winter coat. It costs $400, double the initial price.
Huge sticker shock.
Right. But it is meticulously crafted, incredibly warm, classically styled, and it fits you perfectly. Because it performs its job flawlessly, you pull it on every single chilly morning for 4 years. You wear it roughly 200 times.
So the math flips entirely.
Yeah.
$400 divided by 200 uses means that premium jacket costs you exactly $2 per wear.
The item that costs twice as much at the cash register is actually 50 times cheaper in the reality of your daily life.
It's incredible.
And applying this cost per use calculation just absolutely annihilates the logic behind impulse buying specialized gear.
Well, for sure.
Take the $300 heavy-duty stand mixer or the artisanal pasta maker. You watch a cooking show, you get inspired, and you buy it, swearing you are going to embrace slow living and bake bread from scratch every Sunday.
We've all been there.
But the reality of your life is that you work 50 hours a week. You actually use it to make cookies for a holiday party and maybe one birthday cake twice a year.
At $300 for 2 uses, you're paying $150 per baking session purely in equipment depreciation. It would literally be cheaper to hire a professional baker to deliver a custom cake to your door.
Seriously.
You compare that to a simple, high-quality $30 chef's knife that you use to chop vegetables every single evening. Over a year of daily use, that knife costs less than 9 cents per deployment.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this because I can hear the objection forming for the listener right now.
Let's hear it.
If you're telling me that the $400 jacket is actually the smarter financial play than the cheaper one, aren't you just giving people a sophisticated intellectual excuse to buy incredibly expensive luxury items? How do we prevent cost per use from morphing into a justification for rampant lifestyle inflation under the banner of buying for quality?
That is the most common trap people fall into with this framework, and the text addresses it directly. The entire mechanism relies entirely on your capacity for brutal, unvarnished self-honesty regarding the denominator, the realistic uses.
Okay, so you can't fake the numbers.
Right. It is not a license to buy a Rolex because you'll look at it a lot. It is about paying for genuine utility. If you can find a $50 jacket that is comfortable enough and durable enough that you will wear it 200 times, your cost per wear drops to 25 cents. That is the ultimate victory.
It's not about the price tag at all.
Exactly. The principle isn't buy the most expensive thing you can afford. The principle is only buy things that will endure heavy, relentless deployment in your actual life.
That makes perfect sense. That only works if you don't lie to yourself about your own habits, which connects seamlessly to the second filter, applying what the text calls the replacement test to the ecosystem you already live in.
The replacement test is an auditing tool for the present. The instruction is to physically walk through your living space, pick up an object, hold it in your hands, and ask yourself a highly specific hypothetical question.
And it's a tough question.
Very. If mine burned down today, or if this item vanished in thin air, would I voluntarily take my post-tax dollars out of my checking account, drive to the store, and repurchase this exact same item?
And when you actually do this, I tried it this morning, the results are horrifying. For a massive percentage of your possessions, the immediate visceral answer is a definitive no.
Not a maybe. I know.
Right. If the bread maker collecting dust above the fridge disappeared, would I buy it again? Absolutely not. Would I repurchase the fondue set we got as a wedding
It's
gift?
like that.
No.
Nobody repurchases the fondue set.
No. Would I go out and buy 3 pairs of jeans that haven't comfortably fit my waistline since 2022? Definitely not.
But this forces a psychological reckoning. If you explicitly acknowledge you would not spend money to acquire the item today, why are you continuing to spend invisible currents of space, maintenance, and mental bandwidth to retain it?
Why are we paying the second cost?
Exactly. Why pay the second cost for something you assign zero replacement value to?
The text calls these negative value items. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating because they don't stay in our homes because we love them or use them. They stay purely due to inertia.
Inertia or guilt?
Yeah, it was a gift from an aunt, so we feel obligated to warehouse it. Or it represents a past identity, the person who thought they were going to learn acoustic guitar at age 30.
You're holding on to the physical ghost of an abandoned ambition. We fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. We think, I paid $200 for this guitar, so I can't let it go.
But the money is gone.
The $200 is gone forever. Keeping the guitar doesn't refund the money. It just ensures the guitar continues to extract a physical and emotional tax from you every time you look at it and feel guilty for not practicing.
They are essentially physical parasites living in your house, actively consuming your rent money and degrading your peace of mind while offering absolutely nothing in return.
Perfectly said.
But the source material promises that when you overcome that initial hurdle and finally extract these negative value items from your environment, whether you sell them, donate them, or simply throw them in the dumpster, the resulting sensation is profound.
It's an instant change.
Yes, the 5 minutes you spend bagging it up feel uncomfortable, but the moment it is gone, it is like a literal weight is lifted off your chest. Your visual field clears up. The room feels expansive. Your baseline anxiety drops because there are fewer things demanding your subconscious attention.
Because when you clear out the negative value, every single object that remains in your field of vision has earned its right to be there through actual utility. It's an environment engineered for clarity.
But let's get real here. Calculating cost per use and doing clinical replacement tests is fantastic when we're sitting at a desk, sipping coffee in a perfectly rational state of mind.
In a vacuum.
Right. But humans are not rational calculation machines. We are chaotic, emotional creatures. We get exhausted at the end of a long work week. We get stressed about our relationships. We get profoundly bored.
We do.
How do we protect our financial future from our own brain chemistry when our rationality inevitably collapses?
That is the core vulnerability, right? Cannot outthink biology forever. This leads us to the absolute necessity of engineering our physical and digital environments against impulse.
Okay.
If we rely solely on intellect to stop buying things, we will fail. We must look at the environmental triggers, starting with a massive societal sickness, which is the concept of the casual upgrade.
The source text has a ruthless rule for this. Never upgrade out of boredom. And they define the word functional with zero ambiguity.
Definition.
Extremely. Item remains functional and full of into replacement. It experiences a catastrophic panic down or genuine inability to perform its primary intended task.
This completely undercuts the multi-billion-dollar marketing apparatus that surrounds us daily. We are bombarded with campaigns designed to make us feel inadequate about marginal technological differences.
Like with smartphones.
Perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Your current smartphone connects to the internet, runs all your apps, makes clear calls, and takes excellent photos. It is entirely functional.
It works perfectly fine.
But the marketing tells you the new model has a processor that is 12% faster, a speed difference you cannot physically perceive, and a slightly rearranged camera lens.
Desire for novelty is not a mechanical failure of the item you own. Being tired of looking at your living room rug does not mean the rug has ceased to function as a floor covering, but we confuse the dopamine hit of novelty with the necessity of replacement.
And the compounding financial destruction of this upgrade culture is staggering. Let's run the numbers on the smartphone example alone. The average consumer replaces their $1,000 phone every 2.5 years, typically trading in a device that still operates flawlessly. If instead you kept the phone for 5 years, which is entirely feasible with a battery replacement, you cut your lifetime hardware costs in half.
Just by waiting.
The authors calculate that over a 30-year working career, this behavioral shift regarding phone upgrades alone, assuming the saved money is invested, results in an additional $30,000 to $50,000 of net worth.
50 grand just from ignoring phone commercials.
Just from that one habit.
And that is just one single category. When you apply this militant anti-upgrade stance across all your consumer verticals, keeping your car for 12 years instead of leasing a new one every 3, keeping your perfectly fine television until the screen actually burns out, keeping your laptop until the motherboard fries, rather than upgrading for a sleeker chassis, the lifetime wealth preservation easily eclipses $200,000.
Over $250,000 vanished from the middle class, simply because we've been trained to misdiagnose boredom as obsolescence.
Okay, I am entirely sold on the math. I agree we shouldn't upgrade out of boredom, but again, knowing a tomato is a fruit doesn't mean you put it in a fruit salad.
Right.
Knowing I shouldn't buy things doesn't stop my thumb from hovering over the Buy Now button at 11:30 at night. Which brings us to the behavioral economics section of the source material. The mandate to drastically increase friction for spending while simultaneously eliminating friction for saving.
This is the practical application of ego depletion theory.
Ego depletion.
Yeah. Your willpower is not an infinite reservoir. It acts much more like a muscle. Throughout the day, as you make decisions at work, navigate traffic, manage your children, and suppress your temper, that muscle fatigues.
It gets tired.
By the time you are lying in bed at night scrolling on your phone, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term rational planning, is exhausted. The emotional, impulse-driven centers of your brain take the steering wheel.
So if you're relying on sheer willpower to not buy things, it is exactly like trying to hold your breath underwater indefinitely.
That's a great way to look at it.
You can do it for a minute. You can fight the urge. But eventually, the biological demand for oxygen is going to overpower your conscious control, and you will violently gasp for air. You will crack, and you will buy the thing when you are tired or stressed.
Exactly.
But the text proposes a different strategy. Deleting your credit card information from your browser, removing the shopping apps from your phone, that is like just choosing to stand on the dry pool deck. You don't have to struggle to hold your breath if you consciously refuse to jump into the water in the first place.
It's about recognizing that your environment is constant, while your willpower is highly variable. The digital ecosystem, Amazon, Instagram ads, targeted emails, is designed by teams of behavioral psychologists with one singular goal: to remove every possible micro-barrier between your impulse and your capital.
They want it to be seamless.
One-click purchasing is the most financially destructive digital invention of the 21st century.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text provides a literal, step-by-step defensive playbook to reinstall that friction. First, you open your laptop, go to your autofill settings, and permanently delete all saved credit card numbers.
Yeah.
Second, you delete all dedicated retail applications from your smartphone. If you absolutely must buy something from Amazon, you force yourself to open a web browser, type in the URL, navigate the clunky mobile web interface, walk into the other room to find your physical wallet, pull out the plastic card, and manually type in 16 digits, the expiration date, and the CVV code.
You're intentionally introducing annoyance into the system. You are giving your rational brain 30 seconds to catch up with your emotional impulse and say, wait, do we actually need this?
That slows everything down.
And the authors layer on a mandatory 24-hour waiting period for absolutely any non-essential purchase. You see an item, you want it, you put it in your cart, and then you close the laptop and walk away for a full day and night.
The statistics on this are wild. The text claims that faithfully executing the 24-hour rule eliminates up to 70% of intended impulse purchases.
70%?
70%. Because the vast majority of our desire for an object isn't about utility. It is an acute chemical dopamine spike triggered by the anticipation of acquiring something new.
Right.
If you break the circuit and refuse to act on the spike immediately, the brain processes the emotion, and by the next morning, the overwhelming desire has simply evaporated like morning fog. You look at the cart the next day and think, why did I even want that?
Minimalists and highly wealthy individuals do not possess superhuman, monk-like self-control. They've just architected a physical and digital environment where their untrustworthy emotional impulses are structurally impossible to act upon immediately.
It's just a system.
And importantly, they flip the friction dynamic when it comes to wealth building. They make saving entirely automatic. They set up direct payroll deductions into investment accounts. The money moves on the first of the month without human intervention.
So there's no willpower needed to save either.
They treat their savings rate as a non-negotiable fixed tax on their income. exactly like their rent or electricity bill.
Okay, so we have built the dam. We have engineered the environment to stop the flood of new, useless things from flowing into our lives.
Right.
But what about the water that has already pooled in the reservoir? How do we handle the slow, invisible, creeping accumulation of objects that happens to absolutely everyone just by virtue of living in society for years?
This requires moving from defense to offense. We have to introduce strict auditing metrics into our domestic life, beginning with the practice of conducting a physical inventory. You must force yourself into absolute awareness by counting your possessions.
I'm going to be honest, when I read this part of the text, I balked.
A lot of people do.
It says to pick a specific category. Let's use t-shirts as an example. Pull every single one of them out, pile them on the bed, and physically count them to get a hard numerical data point.
And why is that important?
Well, it notes that human beings are terrible estimators. We always guess shockingly low. You might walk around genuinely believing you own maybe 15, maybe 20 t-shirts,
Seems reasonable.
but then you do the audit. You pull them from the laundry basket, the back of the closet, the gym bag in the trunk of your car, the bottom drawer, and you discover the actual undeniable number is 47.
The revelation of that true number fundamentally alters your consumer psychology moving forward because it destroys the illusion of scarcity.
Completely.
When you are operating under the vague assumption that you have a few shirts, buying another one feels harmless. But when you possess the concrete data that you own 47 shirts, walking through a department store and looking at a graphic tee feels entirely different.
You can't justify it any.
You're no longer just casually buying a shirt. You are making the conscious, slightly absurd decision to expand your personal warehouse inventory to 48. The hard number acts as a psychological mirror.
And the text suggests using these baseline counts to establish rigid maximum thresholds. You analyze your life and decide, my absolute operational cap is 30 items of hanging clothing, or I am allowed a maximum of 15 unread books on my shelf at any one time.
I like that one.
If you hit the cap, the system locks. Or you implement a militant one-in, one-out policy. If you purchase a new pair of running shoes, an old pair must immediately leave the house via donation or the trash.
These artificial constraints are critical because of a law of domestic physics. Without intentional limits, possessions will naturally expand to consume whatever physical space is available to house them.
Like a gas filling a room.
Exactly. If you buy a larger house, you will inevitably buy more furniture to fill the empty corners. The one-in, one-out rule is a brilliant friction mechanism. It means every single new acquisition demands a blood sacrifice.
A blood sacrifice.
You cannot just buy something. You have to consciously identify a currently owned item that you value less than the new object. Often, when faced with throwing out something you like just to make room for something new, you simply decide not to buy the new thing.
Okay, but let me push back hard on this. We have a listener profile. Let's call her Sarah.
Okay, Sarah.
Sarah is a project manager. She has 2 toddlers, and she commutes an hour each way. If I tell Sarah she needs to spend her precious weekend counting the exact number of spatulas in her kitchen drawer or tallying her t-shirts, she is going to say this sounds incredibly tedious.
Fair point.
Doesn't this extreme level of micro-tracking and inventory management create its own severe form of mental fatigue? Doesn't the sheer administrative burden of this defeat the entire purpose of minimalism, which is supposed to be about peace of mind?
That is the most valid critique of the system, and it touches on the concept of cognitive load. However, the text argues, and behavioral psychology supports, that there is a massive difference between acute effort and chronic drain.
Okay, explain that.
Yes, spending a Saturday afternoon conducting a baseline inventory is acutely fatiguing, but it is a one-time capital expenditure of your energy. The return on that investment is decades of chronic cognitive relief.
Right. I see.
When you have thresholds and one-in, one-out systems running automatically, you completely eliminate the daily decision fatigue of managing a chaotic environment. Furthermore, the text specifically advises against the exhausting weekend warrior approach to maintenance, replacing it with a concept of cyclical decluttering.
Ah, the legendary annual purge. We have all lived this cycle.
Oh, absolutely.
It's spring cleaning. You drink 3 cups of coffee, you tear apart the garage, you fill 12 massive black garbage bags, you haul them to the donation center, and you feel like a conquering hero. Your garage is amazing for exactly 1 week.
And then the insidious, invisible tide of reaccumulation begins to roll back in. Because the annual purge is an event, not a symptom. It's the symptom of the clutter without addressing the underlying behavioral disease, which is how the clutter entered this. based with. Within 24 months, garage is indistinguishable from its previous state. The annual purge is a Sisyphean task. You roll the boulder up the hill, and it rolls right back down.
The alternative proposed is cyclical decluttering. Small, regular. The suggestion is 3 items from your home every single week.
Just 3.
Removing 3 items takes a maximum of 5 minutes. It is entirely manageable for Sarah, our busy project manager, but the math over time is devastating to clutter. Removing 3 items a week means over 150 items permanently leave your house every year without you ever breaking a sweat.
It's slow but steady.
It's sustainable, whereas removing 300 items in a single weekend is an overwhelming night. Usually just results in the boxes getting pushed back into the corner for another year.
But the true genius of the cyclical approach isn't just the volume of removal. It is the constant low-level awareness it generates. When you are forcing yourself to evaluate your environment on a weekly basis, you begin to detect behavioral patterns. You start to trace the supply chain of your clutter. You might realize, for instance, that every single time you have a highly stressful, argumentative week at the office, 3 mysterious Amazon packages manifest on your porch by Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're mapping your emotional spending.
Precisely. You begin to identify your distinct psychological triggers for acquisition. You start to see which specific Instagram-targeted ads are bypassing your logic. You realize you buy fitness gear when you feel insecure about your health, or you buy kitchen gadgets when you feel inadequate about your domestic life.
That's huge.
Cyclical decluttering shifts the paradigm from a desperate, exhausting physical cleanup into a proactive, profound psychological exercise.
Yeah.
It becomes preventative medicine.
That is incredibly deep. It stops being about throwing out a broken blender and starts being an excavation of your own emotional blind spots. Which segues brilliantly into the danger zones of emotional spending. What happens when we get genuinely, authentically excited about a brand new hobby or a sudden lifestyle pivot? It almost never stops at buying just one introductory item, does it?
Rarely. Humans are aspirational. We love the idea of training ourselves. And the easiest, fastest way to feel like we're forming is to purchase the physical accoutrements of the new identity.
Which leads to the rule: rent or borrow before you buy.
Yes.
The authors coined a phrase for this that made me laugh out loud because it is so painfully accurate. Museums of past enthusiasm.
So true.
Every single person listening right now has a wing of this museum in their house or knows someone who does. It's the closet crammed with intense professional-grade gear purchased for a hobby that survived exactly 3 weekends. It's the $800 skis, the specialized macro photography lenses, the electric guitar, amplifier, and pedal board for the garage band that held 2 rehearsals and played 0 gigs.
The psychology here is fascinating. The initial dopamine rush of discovering a new interest heavily masks the cold reality of the discipline and repetitive practice required to actually master it.
We want the shortcut.
Right. People swipe their credit cards under the subconscious delusion that buying the premium gear will somehow magically guarantee the installation of the habit. They think buying the expensive running shoes will make them want to wake up at 5 in the morning.
It's buying the identity without putting in the sweat. So the rigid rule is, if you decide you want to get into sea kayaking, you are strictly forbidden from buying a kayak.
You have to rent it.
You must go to the local outfitter and rent one for your first 5 excursions. If you watch a documentary and decide you want to try woodworking, you cannot go to Home Depot and buy $1,000 of power tools. You must find a local makerspace or borrow a circular saw from your neighbor.
This enforced friction accomplishes 2 vital objectives. First, it serves as a litmus test for the authenticity of your enthusiasm. A vast majority of new interests are just temporary fascinations.
You find out pretty quickly if you actually like it.
Exactly. Once the novelty wears off and the actual physical exertion is required, the interest evaporates. Renting allows you to discover that reality for $50 instead of $2,000.
That's a massive savings.
And second, if the interest does happen to be genuine and enduring, the renting phase provides critical education. You learn exactly what specific features you actually need.
Right, because beginners always, without fail, buy the wrong equipment. They fall for the marketing and buy the flagship professional model with 60 features they don't even understand, and all they needed was the rugged entry-level version.
Exactly.
By renting first, you bypass the learning curve tax, and more importantly, you maintain the ultimate luxury, the absolute flexibility to explore life, dabble in new experiences, and pivot your interests without immediately strapping the heavy, depreciating anchor of ownership around your neck.
And we must recognize that the anchor of ownership is almost never an isolated weight. That brings us to the most dangerous financial trap of all, which is the lifestyle multiplier effect.
Oh, this is the big one.
A major physical purchase is almost never a singular transaction. It operates as a catalyst, triggering an entire sprawling ecosystem and secondary expense.
With an analogy of this while reading, the Minimalism is exactly like a Trojan horse.
I love that. Let's hear it.
You stand at the gates of your life, you look at this beautiful, shiny wooden horse. Let's say it's a new outdoor pizza oven or a camper, and you say, "Look at this magnificent singular object I have acquired. Pull it inside."
But it's not empty.
No. You don't realize that hidden inside the belly of that horse is an entire battalion of secondary recurring expenses just waiting for nightfall so they can jump out, open the gates, and completely ransack your checking account.
The Trojan horse is the perfect visualization because the threat is entirely concealed at the point of sale. The text uses the boat as the classic example again. A boat is never just a boat. A boat operates as an apex predator in a financial ecosystem.
Right.
First, the boat requires a specialized trailer to move it. That trailer is heavy, which means your current sedan can no longer tow it, forcing you to upgrade to a truck or SUV with a heavy-duty towing package.
Which means a new car payment.
Right, and now your daily commuting gas mileage has plummeted. Then you need the marina storage fees. You need the specialized marine electronics. You need the Coast Guard mandated safety gear, the wakeboards, the life jackets.
The home gym we discussed earlier is another massive Trojan horse. You don't just buy a squat rack. You suddenly realize dropping heavy weights on your concrete garage floor will crack your foundation, so you have to spend $1,000 on high-density rubber stall mats.
And it doesn't stop there.
Nope. Then you realize the garage is a dark cave, so you install massive mirrors and upgraded LED lighting. Then July hits, the garage is 100 degrees, and you are installing a dedicated mini-split air conditioning system just so you don't pass out while lifting. Or consider a swimming pool. You don't just write a check to a contractor for a hole in the ground with water. You are actively legally committing to a lifetime supply of chlorine chemicals, robotic cleaning vacuums, custom winter covers, liability insurance spikes, and $5,000 of upgraded patio furniture and landscaping because your old lawn chairs look terrible next to your new luxury pool.
It's an ecosystem of expenses. Individuals who build genuine wealth minimalists in the truest financial sense calculate this entire ecosystem before they ever approach the cash register.
They see the whole picture.
They possess the foresight to recognize that a $5,000 initial purchase might actually represent an unavoidable $12,000 multi-year financial commitment once the cascade of supporting purchases reaches its logical conclusion.
But the sheer beauty of understanding the multiplier effect is that it works just as violently in reverse. If you apply the concept backwards, purging a major possession doesn't just hand you back the depreciated cash value of the item. It acts as a massive financial tourniquet.
Yeah.
Selling the boat for 15 grand doesn't just put 15 grand in your pocket. It permanently eliminates a sprawling category of recurring stress, insurance premiums, storage fees, and weekend maintenance labor from your life forever. You get your money back and you get your Saturdays back.
Which naturally forces us to zoom out and ask the ultimate existential question of this entire deep dive.
Right. What is the point of all this?
If we are executing all these strategies, if we are successfully cutting out the multiplier traps, if we are damming up the impulse buys with 24-hour rules and ruthlessly purging our negative value items, what are we actually building toward? What is the philosophical end goal of accumulating all this saved capital and reclaimed physical space?
That is the crucial pivot, and the answer is found in the final section of our source text regarding redefining the very nature of wealth. And the cornerstone of that redefinition is you must define enough before you start earning.
Enough. This is undoubtedly the most challenging psychological hurdle in modern personal finance. The fundamental, agonizing trap of the high earner, the exact trap torturing the person in apartment A from our introduction, is the phenomenon of the constantly moving goalpost, also known as hedonic adaptation.
The statistics the authors cite are wild. They point out that in self-reported surveys, a person earning $300,000 a year often reports the exact same levels of acute financial stress, anxiety, and feeling trapped as a person earning $80,000 a year.
Right, the stress doesn't go down.
How is that mathematically possible? Because as their income expanded over a decade of promotions, their lifestyle footprint expanded in absolute rigid lockstep alongside it.
The treadmill speeds up.
The luxury car, the massive mortgage, the private schools, that entire elevated lifestyle simply became their new baseline normal. Because they never defined an endpoint, they feel they need yet another promotion and another raise just to feel like they are finally getting ahead. They are running a marathon where the finish line is attached to the back of a truck driving in front of them.
Minimalists shatter this destructive cycle through a single radical act.
Yeah.
They define enough in absolute concrete terms. They sit down outside the influence of advertising or peer pressure, and they decide on paper what specific level of material comfort constitutes genuine, lasting satisfaction for their particular family, entirely divorced from their potential future earning power.
In practical terms, this means looking in the mirror and saying, a $350,000 house in this specific safe neighborhood is enough space for us, and holding firm to that reality even 5 years later when your business takes off and the bank says you're pre-approved for an $800,000 jumbo mortgage.
Right.
It means declaring that a reliable, slightly used $30,000 Toyota is fully sufficient for your transportation needs, even when every single other partner at your law firm is pulling into the parking garage in a leased Porsche.
By defining enough, you plant a stake in the ground. You create a fixed finish line. Without a finish line, lifestyle inflation will always mathematically outpace your income growth. But when you establish that fixed point, the math of wealth creation becomes explosive.
Let's hear an example of that.
Consider an individual who defines their enough at $60,000 of annual living expenses. Through hard work and career progression, they manage to grow their income to $150,000. Because their lifestyle is capped, they are suddenly generating a $90,000 annual surplus.
That's incredible.
They are building wealth at a staggering velocity.
Because every single new dollar they earn above that $60,000 threshold acts as a direct deposit into the bank of their own freedom. Meanwhile, their peer in the corner office making the exact same $150,000 is just utilizing their recent raise to upgrade from a BMW 3 Series to a 5 Series. They are running faster just to stay in the exact same place on the treadmill.
And that concept of buying freedom is codified in the final, most important rule of the text. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation.
So what does this actually mean for you, the listener? Let's bring this down to ground level. Society bombards us with the narrative that success must be highly visible. It is the sprawling estate, the designer logos, the pristine luxury SUV. If we follow the advice of this deep dive, aren't we basically asking people to deliberately look less successful to their neighbors, their in-laws, and their peers?
You've identified the core societal friction of this entire philosophy right there. Yes, under the conventional, highly flawed metrics of society, you might look less outwardly successful to a neighbor who only knows how to judge human worth by the badge on a car grill.
Right.
But in the reality of your lived experience, you will achieve something vastly superior to looking successful. You will be virtually untouchable.
Untouchable. I love that word for this. Let's dig into what that actually feels like.
Because true wealth has absolutely nothing to do with visible markers of consumption. True wealth is the accumulation of optionality. It is the raw power to dictate the terms of your own existence.
Optionality.
Optionality means having the capital to confidently walk into your boss's office, look them in the eye, and quit a toxic, soul-crushing job without having another one lined up because you know your family is safe. Optionality is the ability to take 6 months off work to care for a dying parent without experiencing a single moment of financial panic.
It's freedom.
It's the ability to easily fund a pivot into a totally different, lower-paying career that you actually love. It is the power to comfortably say no to lucrative opportunities that would force you to compromise your core ethical values or miss your children growing up.
The guy in apartment A earning $200,000 but spending $195,000 to maintain the illusion of success possesses absolutely zero optionality. He is a high-paid hostage.
A hostage, exactly.
He is entirely chained to his income requirement. He has to wake up at 6 in the morning, put on a suit, and go to a job he might despise because the $4,000 leather and the 5-inch TV demand their monthly blood tribute. He works for his stuff.
Exactly. You must internalize that every purchase is a trade. You are not merely trading abstract digits in a bank account for a physical object.
Yeah.
You are actively trading away your future life options for a physical object.
Your future options.
The hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity locked up in an excess massive house cannot be easily accessed to fund an emergency career transition or start a small business. True optionality requires liquid, accessible resources, requires a massive fortified gap between what you earn and what you consume.
So let's bring this massive philosophical shift all the way home and hand you, the listener, a concrete operational roadmap. Based on all the behavioral psychology and financial math we've explored today, how do you actually start implementing this tonight? The text breaks the rollout down into 3 highly actionable timelines.
First, for this week,
Yeah.
start with the immediate environment. Walk through your home and genuinely, ruthlessly apply the replacement test.
Just pick a room.
Right. Do not try to conquer the whole house. Just identify 10 specific items that you know for a fact you would not buy again if they disappeared today. Then take the physical step to break the inertia. List them online, put them in a donation box in your trunk, or throw them away. Pay close attention to the psychological relief you feel when you remove things you don't actually want to manage anymore.
Second, for this month, go on the defensive. Implement the strict 24-hour rule for any and all non-essential purchases. Keep a notepad. Write down the things your brain screams that it wants to buy, wait a full rotation of the earth, and track the data. See how many of those intense purchase desires actually survive the waiting period versus how many simply evaporate once the dopamine spike recedes.
And finally, for this quarter, move into systemic management. Pick 3 specific categories that notoriously accumulate in your life: clothing, kitchen gadgets, and maybe hobby gear, and execute a hard physical count.
Actually do the math.
Face the real numbers. Set absolute maximum thresholds for those categories based on your actual realistic usage. And most importantly, sit down with your partner or yourself and define exactly what enough looks like for your future on paper, so you know where the finish line is.
The grand synthesis of all this, what the host and I desperately want you to walk away with, is understanding the beautifully bi-directional, self-reinforcing relationship between money and minimalism. It is a dual-engine system.
That's a great way to describe it.
Owning less naturally and mathematically creates more money in your bank account through eliminated second costs. But, and this is the absolute secret to peace of mind, having robust, liquid money in the bank makes the desire to own less feel incredibly natural and effortless.
It creates what economists call a virtuous cycle. When your savings account is highly fortified and you possess true, undeniable financial security, the psychological urge to accumulate physical stuff naturally withers away.
Because you don't need it to feel secure anymore.
Exactly. The fundamental human need for status, safety, and security is being met by your actual mathematical financial strength, not by the brand of your wristwatch or the size of your television. Spending less leads directly to saving more, which creates deep psychological security, which in turn radically reduces the emotional drive to spend, which accelerates your saving rate even further.
It's the exact opposite of the destructive cycle we see everywhere, where people spend money they don't have to buy things they don't need, trying to fill the emotional void and anxiety created by their own financial insecurity, which of course just makes them more financially insecure, ratcheting up the anxiety, causing them to spend even more to cope.
High earners trapped in the destructive cycle build absolutely nothing of lasting value. Modest earners, riding the virtuous cycle, build empires of freedom.
Let's circle all the way back to the beginning of our deep dive. Think about those 2 apartments again. The guy surrounded by boxes and the woman with the open space and the massive investment account.
Right, apartment A and apartment B.
The fundamental choice isn't really about how to negotiate a higher salary. The choice is whether you want to own your possessions or whether you are comfortable letting your possessions own you. The math, the behavioral psychology, and the profound, life-altering peace of mind heavily favor the first option.
It is entirely about designing a life where you possess less physical mass, but vastly more freedom of maneuver.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over as you look around your living room tonight. We've spent an hour talking about the hidden financial costs of everything we own. But think about this. If every single physical item you own requires a tiny ongoing subscription fee of your mental bandwidth,
Which we know it does.
what massive, world-changing, or deeply fulfilling pursuits are you currently neglecting simply because your brain is too exhausted from managing your stuff?
That is the real question.
Thanks for joining us on